guaranteed. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I've got a lovely little Reggie on my lap, snoozing.
You're a bit jealous, Mark.
Yeah, he is. Well, my thought process was if Reggie's on my lap, he possibly won't be barking outside the door.
I think that's very good.
Yeah.
That's very good.
So how's your week been since we last recorded?
Well, what's the date today?
I have no
24th?
idea. I think it's a Saturday.
25th. Yeah. So it's 25th of January. So this week has been just uni and podcast writing. I had a deadline approaching. And unfortunately, I never trust myself with what I'm about to write. So I go down rabbit holes and I research and I research and research to the point of where there's too much information. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And then for some reason, well, Eddie was a little bit poorly. So one of the days I ended up having to take him to the vet and things like that. So I lost a couple of hours with that. And then I was trying to look for a quote in the book that I really wanted to use. And I was reading certain chapters that I thought it would be in because the book was split up into sort of like 5 narratives, 6 narratives. And so it would have been easy to pinpoint where it was. Mm-hmm. Hours I looked for this quote. Turns out it didn't exist. I'd made it up in my head.
Love that.
I don't know how.
I don't know how you did that.
So I lost so much time. And then I ended up pulling an all-nighter to get it done ready for the deadline day. But I did get it in on time, so I'm chuffed about that.
Done.
I was very tired though. I think in total I was up for, it was 26 hours by the time I got it in, submitted, and then I was awake for a few more hours. I think in total it was like 31. Then I was asleep for 3. And then I think I stayed up until about 1, 2 in the morning again. So what's wrong with me?
I felt a bit like that lately. I keep staying up really late and it's not good.
No.
However, you are wearing one of our merch hoodies, which
That
looks
I am.
impressive and lovely. I'm not. I'm wearing a T-shirt that relates to one of the cases we're going to be recording today, but I am wearing the spooky necklace you gave me.
I have one too, but I just haven't put it on.
I love it. I forgot I had it. Like I was saying, I forget I have jewellery, and I was on my... I was like, oh my God, I need to wear that.
I need to get a jewellery case because I forget what I've got.
Ideally, I need it in front of me, but then if you leave it out, it gets discoloured, so, you know. Yeah. First world problems.
I'm taking the reins today, and it's not real what I'm about to talk about.
Right.
So I know that sounds really, really random.
Did you dream it?
No, I didn't. It's interesting where this has come from. So I'm going to preface it by saying it is a conspiracy theory. Mm-hmm. And there is one site where there's like a complete account. Bunny ears. Complete account of this. So it was just interesting to find.
Okay.
So I will be talking about the death of Colin Chapman, who he created Lotus, and it's the conspiracy theory surrounding his death.
Interesting. I haven't actually heard anything, which is crazy because I've worked with Lotus a couple of times and I absolutely love Lotus, but I've never heard this. So I'm excited.
Again, that's probably because there's not a lot about it because it 99.9% is not real, not true.
Okay, wow.
But it was just interesting to find out. And, I got to learn a bit about Lotus, which was quite interesting. And it's got a little bit in there for Mark as well because it's got to do with F1, which is awesome.
Yay.
So I'll sort of start off by saying that Colin Chapman, he was a visionary designer, an engineer, an inventor, a businessman, and a trailblazer whose influence on the automotive world is still felt today. He founded one of motorsport's most iconic brands, Lotus, as I have already said. And like you said, you have worked for them. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Do you know what? I suddenly had an epiphany thinking, brilliant, I've got a random fact now. So,
well, in which case, shall I not?
Yeah, I've worked with them a few times and I absolutely love them. I'll do my random fact at the end, which is connected to it.
Absolutely. Do you have a favourite Lotus?
Yes, I do. It was the one they used in the Bond film that went underwater. Okay. I think it was the Esprit Turbo. I think.
Well, we shall find out, because I might mention James Bond.
Amazing. But that's the first car that got me into Lotus, because I remember the car, and I used to have a toy of that car, and I used to play with it in the bath and pretend it was a Bond car. So
she started young. So Colin was born on May 19th in 1928 in Richmond, but he was raised in Muswell Hill. Does that ring a bell?
Muswell Hill?
Yeah.
Yeah. In London?
Why do you think it rings a bell?
I have no idea. I don't know where I am now.
That's where Dennis Nielsen lived.
Who's Dennis Nielsen?
Serial killer.
Oh, okay. I
thought you would have known that.
I don't know her.
I don't know her. But he grew up with an affinity for innovation. His father managed the Railway Hotel in Hornsey, but I couldn't really find too much about his mum. But Chapman, he pursued structural engineering at University College London, where he also joined the University Air Squadron, and that's where he learned to fly. In 1944, during his time at university, he met Hazel Williams at a dance, and the two married a decade later. So that's, in those times, that would have been quite a long time to wait for marriage.
Yeah. I like that. And I like that they met at a dance, because that doesn't happen anymore.
No.
And that makes me sad.
Yeah.
I mean, it might have something to do with the fact that I don't really go clubbing anymore.
Well, clubbing wasn't dances as they knew them back then.
No.
And I don't think you can call clubbing dancing.
I mean, I used to dance in the clubs.
Yeah, but it wasn't like...
Not like an actual fancy dance.
Yeah.
That's the official body language for a fancy dance.
It's like that
if you're
flamenco
watching.
emoji.
There you go.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, the modern day dance, yeah, is clubbing. The discotheque.
Discotheque.
And it was actually Hazel that gave Chapman the £25 that he needed to establish Lotus Engineering Co. in 1952, which set him on the path of revolutionising the world of motorsport. I can see Mark's listening to this. I like it.
It's so interesting. And I love the fact that a woman was behind helping with that. That's great.
So Chapman completed his national service as a pilot in 1948, and that same year he built his first car in a garage behind Hazel's parents' house. The car was a modified 1930 Austin 7 saloon, which he named the Mark I. That was then followed by like the Mark II and others, and then each car was initially numbered as Mark before they then turned sort of the naming convention to type. Mm-hmm. After leaving the RAF, Chapman worked for British Aluminium, or for our US listeners, aluminum.
It is aluminium, though. Sorry, guys.
They must spell it differently, because we've got aluminium.
Yeah.
But I wonder if they spell theirs different, and that's why it comes up as aluminum.
I don't know, but I'm sorry, but we're right on that, I'm afraid.
And whilst he was working there, he also bought and sold second-hand cars. He joined the 750 Motor Club, which was a group formed in 1939 for the impecunious Austin 7 enthusiasts. The club offered a space for like-minded individuals to talk about their cars and motorsport, and they hosted road rallies and trials. And during World War II, they used to meet at pubs.
I love that.
Yeah. So that was a very high...
That's how much we love that notion.
Lotus Engineering Co. was founded by Chapman and Michael Allen, initially with the goal of building copies of Chapman's racing cars. In 1953, Frank Costin joined the company from de Havilland, and in 1954, the Lotus Mark 8 was introduced. The car was a major success, and Chapman ultimately left British Aluminium to devote himself full-time to Lotus, focusing on producing both race cars and road cars.
I love that. So exciting.
There is a lot of sort of speculation around the name Lotus and why they called the company Lotus, but the origin, it does remain uncertain. According to historicracing.com, the name was chosen because Chapman and his friends had exhausted themselves while building the cars, and they believed it had the same sleep-inducing effect as the lotus flower. Mm-hmm. Other sources suggest that the true reason behind the name has been lost to history, with Chapman's wife stating that the explanation passed away with him when he died. Chapman set up his workshops in old stables behind the Railway Hotel where his dad worked, and during this time he also began consulting for Van Wall and BRM racing teams. His passion for motorsport led him to the Le Mans 24-hour race, There you go.
Something we all want to go to.
Right.
Yeah, I really want to go.
Especially Mark. I think he might wet himself if he got the chance to go.
It's so exciting.
Yeah. And before, and then, so he, words already, it started.
It's all right. Doing better than I ever do.
So after Le Mans, he then transitioned to Formula One. Although his cars lacked raw power, their exceptional handling and lightweight allowed them to outperform powerful rivals like Ferrari and Maserati.
Yes, Lotus. Get in.
Chapman famously said, adding power makes you faster on the straights, subtracting weight makes you faster everywhere. Mm-hmm. I mean, In 1963, Scottish driver Jim Clark led Team Lotus to their first F1 World Championship with another title in 1965. Over the years, Lotus secured 7 Constructors' Championships, 6 Drivers' Championships. That's really hard to say with braces in.
You're doing well.
And even the prestigious Indy 500. Drivers like Jim Clark, Graham Hill, Jochen Rindt, Emerson Fittipaldi, Ronnie Peterson and Mario Andretti were behind these historic victories. I'm just going to put this out there. How turned on are you right now that I'm talking about F1?
He's loving life.
He really is. He talks to me, like when he's watching it, he'll talk to me about certain things. He really loves, I think I've said it before, like the science behind it and the engineering and all of that lot. So I think for him now hearing me regurgitating all of this, he's like, Chapman was also key in introducing corporate sponsorships to Formula One, which significantly... what is wrong?
Just slow down.
I know. There's just a lot of information to get through.
That's okay.
It's weird because you think it's because there's not a lot about it that you wouldn't find too much.
There's a lot about Lotus if you're setting the history, which you are. So.
Yeah. Which significantly impacted the sport. The iconic Lotus liveries of John Player Special and Gold Leaf, and I think, was John Player first in red and white and then black and gold?
I don't know, actually. I just always think of black and gold.
Yeah. I might have got that wrong, or it might be the other way round.
I know that Marlborough was red and white.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully the information I've got is correct. Apologise if it's not. But they, those colours, they became emblematic of Lotus. Sponsorship brought in critical investment, which in turn fueled further innovation. This shift played a pivotal role in transforming Formula One from a rich hobby into the multi-billion-pound high-tech industry that it is today. Chapman's influence on modern Formula One engineering is still evident today. Lotus was a trailblazer in introducing the monocoque chassis. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Look at him smiling. He's so proud of me. I don't think I've ever seen him so proud. So what that means is it's essentially like a structural skin, which relies on the external shell to support loads, similar to an eggshell, essentially. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at him. I'm like, am I right?
Am I right? The classic minis also had.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay. What is it for? Well, I'm about to tell you. So this innovation not only improved strength... Oh, no, I'm not. Sorry. So it improved strength and safety, but also increased the rigidity and reduced weight. He's smiling, I can see. He's so happy with me. Another of Chapman's breakthroughs was the use of advanced materials like carbon fibre in F1 car construction. He also pioneered the integration of computer-controlled active components, such as in suspension systems, which further pushed the boundaries of technology in motorsport. While Chapman is often hailed as a guru of chassis design, his contributions to motorsport aerodynamics are equally significant. One of his key innovations was relocating the radiators from the front of the car to the sides, and that move reduced the car's frontal area, which then decreased drag. Mm-hmm. And optimise the car's centre of gravity. He's sorry, he's so proud of me. Which made it more efficient and faster on the track. Team Lotus revolutionised Formula One with the introduction of the ground effect concept. So by utilising Venturi tunnels under the car, low pressure areas were created, which generated downforce and improved grip through corners. This innovative technology has left a lasting legacy, influencing the design of the Lotus. You're going to have to help me with it. Evija? Evija?
I should know this. I think it is just Evija.
Evija.
Think so.
Okay. Which is a hypercar.
Yeah.
And just to explain a bit further as well, the Venturi effect occurs when fluid is forced through a narrow space, causing it to accelerate and create an area of low pressure, while the high pressure area above creates an imbalance that generates downforce. And I got that from racetech.com.
So it is Evija.
Oh, it is Evija. There we go. Thanks to these advancements, Lotus cars were significantly ahead of the competition, and this sparked complaints from rival teams. As a result, the FIA was forced to revise regulations and ban Chapman's pioneering ideas, which I don't think is fair.
That's just spoiling it, and the whiny botches shouldn't be complaining just because a team is better than them.
Well, that's what it comes down to, essentially, isn't it? It's more of a case of they're doing better. We can't have that. That's your ideas are better than ours, and well, sorry, you're not as clever.
I know that Gibbs is saying it's to level the playing fields with the teams with less money, but yeah.
I mean,
was it the teams with less money that were complaining though, or was it Ferrari?
Exactly. I couldn't find anything to say who was complaining.
Yeah, I should imagine it was.
Yeah, Ferrari all about power. That's the thing. I think people think power equals like status or something, or it's like say with people who fight for a living. Like you might have power behind you, but sometimes speed and agility is more. You can get in more jabs and that kind of thing. Whereas one punch and you might get knocked out, but you're probably more likely to be able to duck. And that kind of thing. I think it's the same thing when it comes to these cars.
It is definitely, and I through going to lots of car shows, many people are very preoccupied with numbers and brake horsepower, and a lot of the time it's because they don't actually understand fully what they're talking about. Because if they understood how the car was put together and weight ratios and all those things, then they wouldn't be hung up on the BHP, because actually there's a lot of other factors that will make the car faster and go better. But yeah, it's sort of a not knowing thing. I think they just say, oh yeah, my car is whatever BHP, but it's because they don't really know a lot about the rest of it.
Yeah,
in my experience,
something like that. So again, going back to sort of the fighter analogy, just because you're stronger doesn't mean you're a better. You could be more sluggish, and the same with car. Well, I'm going to guess the same kind of with cars.
Yes, it's about the whole package. It's not about that one element.
Exactly. In 1981, Lotus introduced the Type 88. Is it known as the Type 88 or just the Type 88?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
It's numbers, I have no idea.
The first ever dual chassis F1 car. Chapman realised there was nothing in the regulations prohibiting a car from having two separate chassis. So because I think it comes down to the spelling. The plural of chassis is the same spelling as singular chassis.
Oh, I love that.
So loophole. Seeing that.
Technicality.
Yeah. Oh, just skirt over that. And so one chassis would contain the engine and cockpit, and another would be designed to manage aerodynamic downforce. But despite passing initial scrutinization, I don't know why. Is scrutineering a word? Did I make that?
I think it is, yeah.
Okay. The car faced protests from other teams again, and was ultimately banned before it even raced in a Grand Prix. Ugh. Again, it's the innovation. The man's got a brain for it.
Absolutely. The other people's just jealous.
You're just
jealous.
Lotus on-track success sparked a strong demand for its road cars, with models like Elite, Elan, Europa, and did you call it an Esprit?
Esprit, yeah.
So Esprit. So you don't pronounce the T.
No.
Okay. The Esprit. Earning critical acclaim and further boosting both Chapman and Lotus's reputations. The Esprit was, in particular, it became an iconic supercar partly due to its association with James Bond and achieved global recognition for that.
That's definitely one of... I would, if I had the money, I'd have a collection of Lotus cars, and one of them would be the Esprit Sport, I think it was, that was the Bond car. I absolutely love it.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. I didn't know you were into a Bond car. But then, to be fair, I didn't know you were really into Lotus until you worked for them. I remember being at yours doing that because I was dog sitting.
Yeah.
And I had the TV on, and I was probably about this close to the TV going, oh my God, Helen. And then I think what your random fact is going to be, and I was so excited for you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's one of the proudest days of my life, definitely.
Absolutely, it should be. And you look so comfortable up on there.
Oh, thank you.
I was just like, oh, you look so good.
Thanks,
You
doll.
did such a great job. I think I've still actually, I was filming and taking photos of the TV as well. I think I've still got them on my phone.
Weren't you with Julia as well?
Yeah, she came down, up, across.
Up. And across. Up. She would have come up. Yeah.
Okay. Tragically, on December the 16th, 1982, Chapman did pass away from a heart attack at the age of 54 at Ketteringham Hall in Norfolk.
So I didn't realise he'd passed so young.
Yeah, he was really young.
Wow, gosh.
There does remain some ambiguity surrounding Chapman's legacy. While he is undoubtedly a visionary who constantly pushed boundaries to create exceptional cars, some critics argue that his drive came at the expense of his drivers. Though Formula One has always been a dangerous sport, Chapman was often described as ruthless in his approach. As noted by the Classic Car Trust, which is tcct.com, which is actually where I got this conspiracy theory from.
Okay.
Chapman's mentality was summed up as, I give my best to the driver, but if I go too far in the design, he's the one to pay the consequences. Again, there's a lot that isn't corroborated anywhere else.
Allegedly.
And put forward by this particular group of people. Oh, but there are multiple sources that do agree. So Mark's currently reading an F1 book that I got him, and he the other day he was like, oh, it's just coming up to Colin Chapman. I was like, oh, is it?
And I think at the time, I'm sure, like you obviously just mentioned this, at the time, there were allegations against most of the teams that they were pushing too hard and driver safety. Because, in those days,
safety wasn't as big. It wasn't as looked into as much as like now.
Nothing compared to what it is now.
No. There are two notable incidents that often reference to support the claim that I've just said, and to support the claim of Chapman's ruthlessness. One is the tragic death of Jim Clark on the 7th of April, 1968 at Hockenheim, Germany, and the other is Jochen Rindt's fatal crash during a practice session at Monza, Italy on the 5th of September 1970. Jim Clark was driving a Lotus 48 on a straight stretch of track with no pressure to take unnecessary risks. Yet over 150 miles per hour, his car left the track, somersaulted and crashed into a tree, killing him instantly. So when I say there was no pressure, I don't think he was in like a pole position or anything, so there weren't any other sort of cars.
He wasn't
around him.
Actually racing at the time.
I mean, he was in a race, but there was sort of no one around him, so there was no one to overtake, undertake, what have you. While the exact cause of the crash was never definitively identified, it was widely believed that a deflating rear tyre was to blame. Andrew Marriott, a journalist for Motorsport, reported that another theory suggested was a failure in the mechanical metering unit of the Cosworth FVA engine. I'm really stumbling over these things because it's not natural for me, because I don't know about cars. I don't know about F1. So I'm really kind of like stumbling over them. There was also speculation about driver error, but this was firmly rejected. Chris Amos, a fellow F1 driver, echoed the sentiments of those who knew Jim Clark, stating, if it could happen to him, what chance do the rest of us have? That's because Jim Clark was regarded as one of the safest, most skilled and naturally gifted drivers in F1. Ultimately, the conclusion was that a deflating tyre was responsible for Clark's tragic death. In the aftermath, Chapman was quoted as saying he had lost his best friend. Graham Hill went on to win the 1968 F1 Drivers' Championship, and he dedicated his victory to Jim Clark, which is really lovely. And just goes to show, as Mark's put up there, Jim Clark is still widely regarded as one of the best drivers that has ever raced. And, I mean, that goes in to what Graham Hill did by dedicating it to Jim. Yeah. The location of the crash is now obscured by a reforested area as the racetrack was shortened after the incident. Jim Clark's legacy lived on, and actually Ayrton Senna, who I will do a case on actually, he once described Clark as his boyhood hero as well. Awesome. Yeah. Jochen Rindt at Chapman's urging, so this is in 1970. In September, Jochen Rindt at Chapman's urging and against the objections of his teammate John Miles, who believed it would cause too much instability, drove without nose wings and an aerofoil in an effort to reduce drag and achieve higher top speed. So I think this was, I think there might have been a couple of people that were trying to do it, but it was very, I don't know, I think Jochen Rindt was considered to be sort of one of the, what's the word?
It's kind of the early stages of trying it out, I suppose. And like Goob said, it's experimenting a little bit with, progressing with the technology.
Exactly.
And the shape
and I suppose, obviously, with the technology that they're using with like to create the downforce and stuff, I think that's maybe where like more powerful cars would stick better, perhaps, or am I making that up? Because they're heavier? Would that have anything to do with it? So Monza is a low drag track where top speed is essential. Yeah. So I think they were coming into like a slip of it, and I think drivers would drive behind other cars to reduce that drag.
Yeah.
But for Chapman, he wanted to just sort of eliminate any need for that and to drive without the nose wings. So at low speed, heavy cars grip better. Oh, high speed, you need aerodynamics. Right, okay.
Yeah.
On the Saturday afternoon, so that's the 5th of September 1970, on the final practice session for the Italian Grand Prix, during the 5th lap, something failed on Rindt's Lotus 72 as he was braking at high speed, approaching the Parabolica bend. Just making sure I said that right. The car began to wobble before veering sharply to the left, and Rindt crashed into the barrier, and the wedge-shaped nose of the Lotus was driven under the barrier by the impact, and it tore off the front of the car. It is well known that Rindt had a preference for not wearing his harness properly, only securing 4 of the points, and I think it was either a 5 or 6 point harness to keep him secured.
Yeah, well, I think it would have been 6 point harness. Gosh.
So
why would you not do your harness up properly?
But again, back then, seatbelts weren't a thing in general driving.
No, that is true.
And which is quite weird as well, because I'll go on just to say a little bit about how he was quite instrumental in speaking up for driver safety. But I just don't think he liked wearing all the harness. I think he'd only recently started wearing a harness or something like that. According to what I read, again, that might not be the actual truth. These people lost their lives doing something they love, which is unfair in itself. I don't want people to think that I'm then saying, well, it's his fault because he wasn't wearing a harness.
No.
So because he wasn't wearing, the harness wasn't properly secured, it led to him being pulled into the cockpit upon impact, which resulted in some catastrophic injuries. And I've read in a few sources that included a fatal cut to his throat from the belt buckle.
Gosh.
When I read that kind of took me aback a bit. Triggered. Following Jochen Rindt's tragic crash, an investigation was launched to determine the cause of the accident, particularly considering the skill of his driving. The conclusion was that the right front brake shaft had fractured under heavy braking, though some sources also suggested that instability caused by cold tyres contributed significantly to the crash. Additionally, it was reported that the crash barriers were poorly installed and unsuitable for the wedge-shaped Lotus, so I think something about them being too high.
Right.
Before his death, Rindt had been contemplating retirement from motorsport. I mean, that's just...
Yeah, that's... bleh.
Nah. He'd lost two close friends and fellow F1 drivers, so Bruce McLaren and Piers Courage, which is the name very apt, and was planning to focus on his wife Nina and their young daughter Natasha. Rindt had also previously criticised Chapman and his cars, calling them unsafe and unreliable. But after his victory at the 1969 US Grand Prix, it sort of seemed like he'd softened his stance on that. Interestingly, Chapman rejected the theory that the brake shaft failure was the cause of the crash. He claimed instead that the shaft broke upon impact with the crash barrier. There were even threats of legal action against Chapman, and it was reported that Chapman faced trial but was ultimately cleared of any charges relating to the incident, though details of the trial remain scarce. I couldn't find anything.
See, that just seems really strange to me because I don't understand why they would be just honed in on Chapman when, you know, there are teams involved in these cars. So
it's because the death happened in a Lotus car.
I suppose he's kind of the head of it, so that's where the blame goes. But, you know, it's not just one person building these cars and, you know...
No, and...
I mean, I'll defend Lotus, but...
So Marcus said Italian law, he would have been up for manslaughter. The same thing happened when Senna died with Williams. Right, okay. But yeah, like I said, I couldn't see any details of a trial at all.
Right.
Again, this has come from one source. And... yeah, he was cleared of anything if there was a trial. Jochen Rindt's childhood hero, Wolfgang von Tripp, tragically lost his life in 1961 in nearly the exact same spot where Rindt would then crash 9 years later.
Wow.
Creepy, right?
Very creepy.
Despite the remaining 4 races of the 1970 season, no other driver could match Rindt's points total, which makes him the only driver in F1 history to win the World Championship posthumously.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And
wow.
That's still true today as well.
That's amazing.
And that's just testament to like his skill. Yeah. His driving abilities and things like that. So, because I think there was maybe a question about driver error again, but no. The championship trophy was presented to Rindt's wife Nina. Jackie Stewart was a close friend of Rindt's, and so was Bernie Ecclestone. And apparently Bernie Ecclestone was there when Rindt crashed and walked away with his helmet. But Jackie Stewart, he presented the trophy to Nina. Both Stewart and Rindt had been vocal advocates for improved safety measures in motorsport and for giving drivers a stronger voice in decision making. So again, you kind of then question, why weren't you wearing, if it's the case, why weren't you wearing the harness properly?
Yeah.
As for Colin Chapman, although he had passed away, his legacy and influence continued. According to tcct.com, one of the few sources to touch on the topic, Chapman had recently passed a health checkup in London before his death in preparation for renewing his pilot's licence and life insurance policy. And they're sort of claiming that would have been done to ensure financial stability for his wife Hazel after his death. So I'm going to start to get into the conspiracy and sort of the reasons behind and all of that lot. So the theory suggests that only Hazel and a doctor who was allegedly involved in faking Colin Chapman's death certificate has seen his deceased body. When 2 of Chapman's drivers, Fittipaldi and Andretti, inquired about funeral details to attend, they were informed that Chapman had already been buried. And so the rushed response supposedly raised suspicions.
I can see why that would.
If it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Additionally, the wife of the cemetery caretaker claimed that the date of Chapman's death had been altered in parish records. She also allegedly heard from Hazel Chapman that the doctor who signed the death certificate had vanished shortly afterward, possibly taken off with Chapman to disappear and split the money. But what money? And why? So the answer does lie in the DeLorean scandal.
Okay.
So it's all twisty-turny.
Yeah.
So the DeLorean Motor Company was founded by John Z. DeLorean in the mid-1970s. Z? Apparently I've gone American now. John Z. DeLorean in the mid-1970s after years of seeking financing and a location for his ambitious project. Eventually, the British government provided the necessary funds, $120 million, to build the factory in Belfast, which was a city, it was struggling with poverty. There was still a lot of conflict there. And the investment, funded partly by the public, was hoped to stimulate the economy and create jobs in the region. DMC also needed specialised design and engineering expertise for their vision of a rear engine. Excuse me, I've lost punctuation there. Expertise for the vision of a rear engine stainless steel sports car, which would be the DMC 12. To achieve this, DeLorean turned to Lotus for its engineering capabilities, reportedly paying through a Panama-registered and Swiss-based firmed company called General Product Development Services. The firm was allegedly registered by Colin Chapman, the Lotus chairman Fred Bushell, and John DeLorean himself. However, one major challenge was the car's price point in the US market. So initially the cost was pitched at $10,000, anywhere between $10,000 and $12,000. And that would have made it competitive with models like the Chevrolet Corvette. Mm-hmm. However, due to fluctuating exchange rates and rising development costs, the price of the DMC 12 increased to $25,000 at launch. So it's not even just a little bit. Yes. It's a huge amount. It's nearly doubled. It's over doubled, sorry. Despite the price hike, the demand for the car did remain strong. Mm-hmm. In October 1981, sales peaked at 720 units. But as the US economy slid into a recession, sales began to decline, even though production continued at full speed. By the end of 1981, the company had accumulated a stockpile of 4,500 unsold vehicles. And in January 1982, sales dropped dramatically, reaching less than 1/10 of the previous total. This financial collapse triggered a cash crisis that ultimately led to the company's downfall.
I'll have one. I love the DeLorean. I've always wanted a DeLorean.
You know, everyone knows the DeLorean from Back to the Future. Mm-hmm. I thought it was a made-up car for years.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, just thought it was a made-up car.
I've seen quite a few documentaries on the whole DeLorean thing that's really, really interesting.
Yeah, there was a lot I could have read about it, but I was like, I need to
That's another case in of itself, though.
Yeah.
That is, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, you're completely right. But what I was reading was like, there are rabbit holes I can go down here, but I just need to keep it focused.
Yeah.
To make matters worse, the US government conducted an investigation and reportedly discovered that half of the funds allocated to DMC had allegedly been diverted to the account that wasn't real.
Oh.
Next, DeLorean found himself at the centre of an FBI sting operation. In October of 1982, he was arrested and charged with trafficking cocaine. He spent 10 days in prison while trying to raise funds for his bail. 2 years later, in 1984, DeLorean was acquitted of all charges at his trial on the grounds of entrapment. However, the UK government attempted to extradite him to face charges of fraud related to the collapse of DMC and the alleged misuse of government subsidies. The US authorities refused to cooperate and the extradition attempt was unsuccessful. But it has been noted that a judge did say that DeLorean should have served at least 10 years in prison. Chapman, too, would have faced a similar sentence, but as we know, his death meant that he never faced those charges. Mm-hmm. So this stuff is all real.
Yeah.
It's the conspiracy behind his death that just is hogwash.
Right.
Absolute hogwash. The timing of Chapman's death, just 2 months after the DMC fiasco, sparked speculation that he had faked his own demise. Although Chapman had been questioned by authorities prior to his sudden death, Fred Bushell was arrested, with some suggesting that he knew the whereabouts of the missing money and he did serve time as a result. Chapman's sudden passing was widely reported and rumours began circulating that he was living in South America, having undergone plastic surgery and erased his fingerprints.
Oh.
I mean, that's quite nifty back in the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been possible.
Well, absolutely. I mean, obviously, yes to the plastic surgery, but the erasing of the...
I don't know how you would erase fingerprints. Would you burn them off?
Yeah, acid, that sort of thing. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
sort of modern day technologies, but I think back then it would have been something like
Or
that.
just wear gloves all the time?
Yeah. I don't know, there must be something, but...
Blech.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
It just seems very far-fetched, especially
does.
for the time.
Yeah, it does actually sound like the story in a Bond film.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, all this technology that, you know, people came up with as movie plots and things like
Yeah.
that. It's just, it seems like a movie. I might have actually said that later on as well. But a renowned Formula One aerodynamicist, Adrian Newey, wrote in his autobiography that F1 champion Mario Andretti always maintained, so this is apparently a direct quote, always maintained that Chapman faked his own death and fled to Brazil to escape trial. A claim that would be absurd if it was anyone else but Chapman. Andretti obviously denied that, or denies saying that ever. Reports suggested that both FBI agents and BBC reporters had been searching for Chapman, but no trace of him was ever found. And to be honest, there's little evidence to support the existing of any investigation at all. Well, I say little, none, that I could find. Again, it all comes from one source.
Yeah.
Source.
Yeah.
Finally, another rumour that fueled the speculation was that Hazel Chapman took a month-long trip to Brazil after the country's 1983 Grand Prix. She claimed to have a fear of flying and hadn't been on a plane in the previous 10 years. Again, allegedly.
Maybe she got hold of some Valium. Who knows?
Well, it wouldn't have been difficult, would it?
No.
And the case was closed in the early 1990s. Like I said, it does sound incredibly far-fetched. Wiping fingerprints from the 1980s, it is something out of a movie.
Yeah, oh, completely.
As I mentioned before, tcct.com, oh my God, I don't know why that's so difficult, offers the most complete account of the story. Other sources are fragmented and lack any concrete evidence. Additionally, it's also hard to imagine why Hazel would remain involved, because she was involved with Lotus up until she died.
Yeah.
But, you know, why would she have hung around and done all of that if her husband had actually kind of essentially abandoned her?
Or was he pulling the strings from far away and she was acting as his voice?
Well, exactly.
It's an interesting theory.
That's the thing. I know it's probably... It is not true.
I mean, weirder stuff has happened.
Weirder stuff has happened, and it's not completely implausible.
No.
It is something that could be, the fingerprint wiping, maybe not so much, because I think to pay for something like that, you'd have had to have a lot of money.
But he did have a lot.
He did have a lot of money, but more than probably, I don't know.
I don't know about fingerprint erasing.
No.
But I don't know. It's like you're saying, it's implausible, but it's not impossible.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I quite like it. I hadn't heard that.
It's just
theory
really
before.
interesting.
It is really interesting. It is really, really interesting.
Some motorsport historians, according to thedrive.com, suggest that Chapman may have relied on drugs to sustain his intense drive, which, if true, could have seriously affected his health. So this sort of goes towards, his actual heart attack, about, why it could have occurred so early.
Young, yeah.
Mike Lawrence, author of a biography on Colin Chapman, stated, for at least 20 years he was on uppers and downers. When he started, the world was still innocent about drugs, and Chapman's were prescribed by his doctor. However, again, I couldn't find sort of any specific details about the extent of his drug use or potential abuse. By the early 1980s, Lotus was also facing financial difficulties, which put Chapman under immense pressure. Now, the impact stress can have on somebody's health, particularly the heart, is incredible. So if he was taking drugs, whether they're prescribed or not, and, the stress was that intense, it wouldn't be unreasonable to believe that that's what contributed to his sudden heart.
Oh, absolutely.
His heart suddenly giving out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's definitely possible, and that seems like that's probably what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me that it's case closed. It was, it was a heart attack. And people can have heart attacks at any age.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, in Mark's family, people have had heart issues really young. Sometimes it's just a defect.
Someone I used to work with had a heart attack when he was in his 30s.
Yeah.
Completely out of nowhere.
Mark's cousin did.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's not actually, it's sort of scarily more common than you think it would be.
But it also goes to show, it doesn't matter how healthy you are. If you look at marathon runners that have dropped down dead when running a marathon. That is a significant amount of stress that's put on the heart by running that kind of distance and training like that.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that.
No, please don't.
I don't want to.
So, you think, ultra marathon runner, all of this lot, well fit, well healthy. Well, actually, no, because you think about the stress that your body is being put under with that kind of thing. It could go either way.
Yeah.
So, funny, well, it's not funny, but interestingly, Mark's cousin who had the heart attack, someone I used to work with pulled up to help him.
You've told me this before. This is weird.
It's really weird. So, he pulled up to help him. It was someone I worked with in the prison service. And after that was when he decided to become a paramedic. And obviously then I met Mark. He said, then a few years later I saw a post that was shared by Mark's cousin's daughter. And it had this the name in of the person that I worked with, saying thank you so much still, it was an anniversary, I think. I was like, I used to work with him. That is crazy. And I remember him telling me about what had happened. And then lo and behold, quite a few years later, I'm then with Mark, and very small world.
Small world indeed.
So obviously I could have gone into a lot more about Chapman's life, his work with Lotus, his consultancy, more about F1, etc. But I did kind of just want to focus on, because it was just so random, I just wanted to focus kind of on the conspiracy theory, give a bit of history behind everything, and then sort of the main point of this episode was to talk about the conspiracy theory. Again, complete hogwash, I think. I do believe. It'd be interesting if the listeners have ever heard anything about it or not. But yeah, that is the conspiracy surrounding Colin Chapman's death.
That's so interesting. I don't know why I haven't heard that before.
Probably because there's barely anything about it.
It's really strange. I mean, so Lotus are in the same place where they've always been, and that's an old RAF base where the test track is and the factory and everything like that. And
because I think they moved it all from wherever it was set up originally to Norfolk.
Yeah, so that's in Norfolk. Yeah. And they tell me so many ghost stories. When I haven't been there for a while, because I haven't worked with them for a while, but they used to tell me the people who work for Lotus, you find that some people have worked there like literally their entire lives. It's a big family, and there's some really good ghost stories about the test track at the headquarters because it's built on this old RAF
really
base. Yeah, so it's really, really interesting. It's a great company, but I don't understand why I haven't heard that before. Obviously, they're not going to say that when you go, because I've had a tour around there and stuff, and you can book tours there as well.
They're not going to bring up the fact that
they're not going to.
Chapman was into some dodgy dealings prior to his death.
So that's Wow.
And again, like I said, there's one in Bunny's complete account.
Yeah.
And that's all I could find. So yeah, that just says everything really. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. Thank you.
Did you enjoy that one? I think you shut off after I stopped talking about the F1 bits, didn't you? Yeah. But yeah, no, I hope everyone enjoyed that. Thanks to Mark at Park Lane Studios for... No, hang on. I've wrapped that up way more quick.
She's cutting us off.
Sorry.
We've got get in the bins, we've got get in the pockets, and we've got random facts yet.
I'm trying to hope, because I just struggle with these so much, maybe we can fizzle them out.
We can do. We can just do them on Spooky Chats, but then we could just do them on Spooky Chats.
Yeah, maybe.
So it's not in the cases.
Yeah.
Because I can't think of stuff. I have loads of stuff. I can't think of stuff.
Yeah.
So have you got a get in your pocket today?
Come back to me, please.
All right. Well, my getting a pocket is Lotus because I absolutely love them. My get in the bin is the fact that I haven't worked with Lotus for quite a while.
Yeah.
And my random fact is that I've worked with Lotus before.
Oh, see, I thought you were going to say about interviewing Jensen Button for Lotus.
So, specifically, so I worked with them on the launch of the Emira, which was the last combustion car that was in production.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely incredible. And when I have the money for one, I'm going to buy one because it is a mini supercar.
Is it?
They are absolutely awesome and they're beautiful as well. Like the design of them is outstanding. And they did a live launch, which was on YouTube, and I did it with another presenter called Andy J. The weather we had was unbelievable. We had hail, we had wind, we had rain. Honestly, it chucked everything at us that day, and it was live, so we had to just keep going. And I got to do an interview with Jensen Button. Yeah. And when Rob, who at the time was the PR guy who worked there, when he introduced me to Jensen, I gasped because I'm an awkward person, and it was Jensen Button.
You're fangirling.
He is amazing. He's an incredible driver, and he's very handsome, so it was just all too much. And then I had to interview him, and he was amazing, and he gave me a hug afterwards and told me well done.
Love that.
Yeah, so that's my amazing random fact. Right, so
nothing's really going to top that today.
No, sols.
Can you read Mark's whilst I have a think?
So Goobs getting his pocket is waking up and finding Eddie on the sofa. He'd got up there by himself. I've seen photographic evidence, and that was excellent news.
Sort of to put that into context, since he got really poorly, he hasn't really done that too much, whereas he used to be on the sofa all the time for Nuggles.
Exactly, so that was a nice surprise. And Goobs getting the bin is his forgetfulness. Right, yeah, I understand what
we concur.
Yeah. You? Oh, and his random. Let me do his random fact. Keeping it F1 themed. He's a massive fan of McLaren, all from Mika Hakkinen in 1999.
Oh, there we go.
I'm a big McLaren fan. I used to cheer on Lotus and McLaren. They were my teams that I always really wanted to do well. When I might get back into F1 actually, because it's kind of I might start getting obsessed with it again. Because it is an obsession when you get into it, isn't it?
So my get in the bin is Andrew Tate.
Okay.
That man is a wally.
What was suddenly sparked that?
Oh, well, we watched a brief documentary about him the other day when we were eating dinner.
Okay.
It is just, there are no words for that man, and not in a good way. Because I'm keeping this clean, he's a wally.
Yeah, and also we don't want to get sued by anybody.
He's basically a terrorist. Getting my pocket is Eddie. I'm going to have to say Eddie because he's always perfect. But he has been extra nuggly and, he just makes me so happy and I love him so much.
Oh, that's cute.
And random fact, I am now a fan of Crocs.
Yeah.
When we went on our cruise, when we were in Miami to begin with before we boarded. Boarded? Is that the right word? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Embarked.
Boarded.
Yeah. Went to like a Croc shop and there were just loads of really cool ones. Like people think they're just like these ugly holy things, but they're so comfortable. Mm-hmm. And then for Christmas, Aaron and Sophie bought us a pair each. And there are indoor shoes and they are so comfortable.
I think Crocs are Marmite. You either love them or you hate them.
But in particular, the design of mine, they look like clouds. Mm-hmm. Jazzy clouds, maybe? I don't know.
Look like you've got jazzy cloud feet.
Jazzy cloud feet, yeah.
Lovely.
So that's that. Shall I round it up again?
You go ahead with what you started earlier.
Yeah, sorry. I think I just got a bit ahead of myself. And also, I'm going to say that for a random fact, actually. Okay. I've got another one. All right. So thank you to Mark at Park Lane Studios for doing all the sound and the production, making us sound, making this,
content,
what is it?
That sound professionally even when the content isn't. And he also is in charge of the video and the lights, everything basically. Yeah. All the things.
I wish you were in charge of like me speaking because I'm failing miserably. He says so do I.
And if you want to find us on all the listening podcast platforms, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, which we don't update, and our merch is all on linktree/Cars of the Macabre. Make sure you download, subscribe, like, share, comment.
We'll get better as these records today go on.
I don't think we ever will. This is
Hope
just how it is.
I'm getting worse, yeah. No, I know.
All right, well, thank you so much for that, Allie. Thank you very much, Goobs. And
very car-centric, that one.
yeah, very car-centric. Thank you. So until next time, stay spooky, bitches.